So what we're going to do today is I've entitled this talk "The Calendar is Not Random" because there's some curiosities here, and it really shows how time memory reveals what comes next. Okay, and so I hope you enjoy it. There's a lot in this, so let's just start off. And here's the plan: is anything random? I'm going to come out with some curiosities, and hopefully they'll tweak some inspiration in you. We're going to look at some geopolitical cycles. I'm going to make a note about that in a minute because I know a lot of you are fans of my work or subscribers to my work. I'm going to look at wars. I'm going to look at tariffs. I'm going to look at the world and where we are right now. And then we're going to take it a bit more easy. And we're going to look at markets and what's hot and what's not. So, and then we'll then run into some questions. So here we go. 3rd of January, 2026, President Trump captures Maduro. 3rd of January 1990, George Bush Sr. captures Manuel Noriega. 36 years to the day. Okay, so that could be a bit coincidental. But let's go back to let's go back to January. The 1st of January 2026, Zoran Mamdani becomes the first Asian Muslim mayor of New York City. And the 1st of January 1990, David Dinkins becomes the first African-American mayor of New York City. So kind of this is pretty interesting that we've got these 36-year events to the day. So I'm just saying that. Okay, so there's a couple of other things that will come up. Right, so before we go any further, a lot of you have got the year ahead market timing report. Now, what I wanted to do, the foundation asked me to talk about geopolitical cycles. We did this a few years ago, and I gave away the contents of the report, which upset everybody that got the report. So we're not doing that this time. This is additional material. Basically, it's going to supplement those of you who got this report. And if those of you who don't have it, you can get the report later. But we just want to make it very clear, we're not examining anything in this report, but this is all different material that I've just put together over the last couple of days. And I hope you find it interesting. Next up, and this is most important, what follows now is objective, apolitical study of recurrences or cycles. But as human beings, every one of us has beliefs and biases and emotions. And in fact, if you were in New York, I did a little presentation about how we map emotions potentially and so on in cycles. But what I'd like you to do is that I'd like you to understand this presentation, the first part of this presentation, with an open mind. And so on that basis, so that you can understand what's unfolding, and so you can protect what's got yourselves and your families from what lies ahead, and also be prepared to harness opportunities. I'm going to ask you to go to the baggage check and check in your political beliefs, your emotions, and everything, and look at this completely objectively. Move to the left-hand side of your brain, and you can get your beliefs back in 20 minutes, not even 40 minutes. Okay, but it's really important because people will immediately bring barriers up to some of the things I'm going to present. And I don't want you to do that because I want you to understand that this is objective analysis. So with that in mind, where are we now? How did we get here in terms of cycles, and what do the roadmaps show? So this very first bit's a recap. Those of you who've been looking at my work for a while will recognize some of it, and then you won't have seen the second part, which I've just updated just today and yesterday. So here we are. We are in a modern day revolution. We are in a 250-year revolutionary cycle. How did we get here? Well, it's the 250-year anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and we've moved on from there. And 250 years before then, we saw the Protestant Reformation, which is when Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the church door in Wittenberg, starting the Protestant Reformation, challenging the Pope and Catholicism. So the idea is that we are a 500-year cycle and a 250-year cycle. This has been playing out for the last 7-8 years. And what is this cycle all about? It's really all about this idea of death and rebirth, change, transformation. And that is where we're at. And it's not just America. America 1766. But let's just take this a stage further, and then we'll get a bit deeper into it. So we also have this 82 to 84 year, 81 to 84 year cycle. We call this the modern day revolution. We wrote about this in the book 0 Hour. And what we saw was back in 2017, when we wrote the relevant parts of 0 Hour, we saw this whole idea of the world going from globalization to polarization. And people had had enough of the status quo. In Britain, a guy called Nigel Farage brought in Brexit. in 2016. In America, we saw a new type of presidency. It was the 45th president, Donald Trump. But why did they come in? Because people had had enough. And if you go back this 82 to 81 to 84 year cycle, we see that Adolf Hitler became chancellor at that point. And he became chancellor because the previous chancellor was very weak in looking after the affairs of Germany, which had been hit with all these reparations from the First World War, the Great War as it was known then, because that was the only war that had taken place. And so people were fed up and they were looking for a leader, just like people were fed up and were looking for a leader here. You could go all the way back then to 1848, right? That's the previous revolutionary cycle. And what happened there? Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels brought out the Communist Manifesto and said, workers, rise up, break free of your chains. So what had happened then? At that point in time, the Industrial Revolution was taking place. A lot of the Jeff Bezoses or the Elon Musks of the time were working people very hard. There was a lot of child labor. And basically, this was this idea of getting the workers to rise up and break free of their chains. Take the cycle back again, and we get to 1765, which was the imposition of the Stamp Act. And at that point there, we saw that's really what precipitated the American Revolution. So this is old stuff. Now, let's look at where we're at right now. So if we go back, we are now in the 2026 250-year anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And in fact, you know, you could go back to 1526, and San Miguel de Guadalupe, which was somewhere in the Carolinas, was the first Spanish colony founded there, which had enslaved African Americans there. And they actually, this was the very first recorded colony. So they escaped and basically went off there from there to live with the American tribes. The point is that colony broke up very clearly. So what we've got is these cycles. So here's the question, right? So we are now at the end of a cycle, a death and rebirth cycle. So the end of a cycle, the beginning of a new cycle. So the question's really to ask now, are we seeing the end of the Constitution as we know it for 1776? Is America about to rise up into its next phase in a different manner? Of course, the 1776 revolution, the Declaration of Independence, didn't just impact America, it impacted Great Britain. And is Britain now in a point of turning? And it certainly is. I mean, that's for sure, I can tell you, because back in 1776, it was Great Britain. Britannia ruled the waves. Now Britain is a shadow of that country. So it's not just America that's been impacted. In this case, it's also Britain. So you can see there's an awful lot going on. So looking at this, if we look at the war, 81 to 84 year populist movement cycle, sorry, that should be 84 there. Here we go back one revolution, and we see America was in the Second World War at that point. We go back another revolution, and we see the USA was in a civil war. And then we go back another time, and then we saw the battle at Yorktown, 1781, which effectively finished off the British from America. So we're seeing a series of war cycles coming in for America, especially. So, and you know, are these international cycles or are they internal civil war cycles, or both? The point is that there is a degree of warmongering going on, and well, we can see it very clearly right now as well. So this is where we're at in terms of the geopolitical roadmap. So the just zooming in on the civil war cycles, as I say, here they are again, that we really had them on the last page. This is an old slide, but I did brief you on this a way back, which was this idea that the US civil war cycles internally come to a peak around about 2027, Q2, Q3. So this is quite interesting, because this sort of time period here will also be the 60-year anniversary from the late 60s, from 67, 68, Martin Luther King, the assassination there at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis and so on. So are we going to see some degree of internal discomfort here as well? I mean, I think that sort of kind of speaks for itself. So what are we saying here is that, you know, actually we'll come back to that in a minute. So that's just, I just want to give you that background. That's where we're at now. We've moved these cycles on, but the 81 to 84 year cycles have become 90-year cycles as well. And as I mentioned already, we've moved from globalization to polarization, because people become fed up of weak governments and they're looking for strong leaders. Now, this is exactly what was happening 90 years ago, once we said that. Everybody wants to see a change of the status quo. So stay objective, because we're not having a go that, whether you're conservative, liberal, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is just an analysis of cycles. There's no rights and wrongs, okay? That's just how cycles play out. So with this in mind, if we go back to the 13th of September 2025, those of you that live in Britain will know that a guy called Tommy Robinson held a tremendously large rally in London. Anything reports of 110 to 150,000 people. And it was ostensibly to protest against illegal immigration and the taxpayers paying for that. But it also did have some significant undertones for more of the right wing and the far right. So this was kind of interesting because this happened on the 13th of September. It polarized a lot of people. Again, a very much anti-Keir Starmer government protest as well. But here's the interesting thing. If we go back to the 15th of September 1935, so this is exactly 90 years, really, in 2 days, at the Nuremberg rallies, which were held by the Germans, the very time there to the day, they brought in 1935 the law for the protection of German blood and German honor, which prohibited marriages and sexual relations between Jews and Germans. And it barred Jewish households from employing German women under the age of 45. Okay, so it's very anti-Semitic, racist. It was a special session brought in, and basically the Reich citizenship law restricted citizenship to people of German or related blood. So what you can see here is this was a turning point event, and this here actually consolidated people's sentiment. There's a lot of strong feeling about foreigners, basically, and so on coming in here. So you can see that there is this move towards an acceleration towards greater polarization, and in these two cases towards the right. So if we look at the Civil War cycles that I've been talking about coming together in America, basically what we've seen here is this idea that I first thought it would be red versus blue, but now we can see how ICE is moving under the current leadership to evict people that aren't fully naturalized. Some of these people have been here peacefully in America for a long time. And you can see how visa controls are coming in, and migration is now being controlled. So you can see there are flavors of control of different groups and a definite polarization. That is the key point to make. And in Britain, we've got our own issues, and that's actually covered in the Master Report. So I'm not going to, for the benefit of those who paid for it, I don't want to cover those here. So that's that. So this is the sort of flavor of where we're at on this timeline. And, a couple of other things. Actually, let me just finish here. Well, let's put this into the block of, if we take the bigger cycles that I look at, when we get to 2029, we will be in the 100-year cycle from the 1929 crash. We will be in the 90-year cycle from the 1913 outbreak of the Second World War. So I think that's a clear tipping point coming in. And I think we have to say that if we look, especially with that 90-year cycle and the war where things polarize, okay, we are definitely at tipping points right now. But I think we have to accept between now, that's 2026 and 2029, the world is going to be a very uncertain place. So just bear that in mind. Next up, the 90-year overlay cycle on the 1st of August 1936, the Berlin Olympics took place. They were highly politicized by the German leader at the time. Almost to within less than 2 weeks of the 90-year cycle, the FIFA World Cup will be taking place in America. In fact, that's when we originally planned the conference. But these dates, the 11th of June 2026 to 19th of July 2026, pretty much 90 years to say a week and a half from these dates. And basically, what we're going to see here is, well, are we going to see, will these be politicized by the leader then? And also remember, these restrictions have been brought in by visa controls. So, a lot of fans will not be able to attend, not a lot, but a proportion of fans will not be able to attend in person. So let's see what happens. But the point here is that there are flavors and echoes of a 90-year cycle coming in. Now, some other things I want to cover that I think are very relevant. This was printed back in on the 29th of September last year, and it relates to the United Nations, which has been very topical. And I think things have been said that there's going to be Someone wants to create a private membership club with an entry fee of $1 billion, and they remain responsible for running that organization. Is being proposed right now. So let's look at the history of the United Nations, which was set up by President Roosevelt as he sought to convince the public that an international organization was the best means to prevent future wars. So on the 20th of July, 1945, the United Nations came into existence, after a vote just a few months later. So the point was that was 80 years ago last September. The 81 to 84 year cycle is coming in. And as I wrote there, and I suspect that we're seeing the beginning of the end of this global collaboration that replaced the League of Nations. Now, the League of Nations was formed after the end of the First World War. That was founded in 1926. Well, that's the 100-year cycle coming in right now. So what we're really saying, and this, as I wrote this several months ago, is I think the United Nations, and it's becoming very clear with what's been said in the last few weeks, is very much at risk, especially with its prime property there in downtown New York in Manhattan. And we also know that global peace is threatened for sure. So that was something I just wanted to add to the mix here. Next up, something on tariffs. This was written a year ago. This was in the year ahead report last year. It's still very relevant. You know, today I'm hearing in the news that a 200% tariff is being proposed to be placed upon French imports of champagne because of a lack of perceived cooperation there. So this really is something really worth looking at from a cycles perspective. This, as I say, we wrote back in 19th of January 2025. So yeah, a year ago yesterday it was released. Making America Great Again, Lessons from History and the Gamble of Modern Protectionism. So the reason this cycle is so important, because it takes us back to the year 1890, which was 3 cycles of 45. So we talk about the 90-year cycle. This is 3 cycles there fitting of that. So the McKinley Tariff Act was introduced in 1890 during a period of significant budget surplus following the Civil War. The Republican Party, which controlled Congress and the presidency, saw 2 main reasons for implementing the tariffs. So this is 1890. And the Republicans believed higher imports would force Americans to buy domestic goods and therefore would stimulate US industrial growth, the same as the policies that we've seen in the last few years. It would also protect American workers from foreign competition. And, you know, as I say, how familiar was that? So taxes were placed on and tariffs were placed on some as high as 50%. But here's what happened, and this is the important point. If we look at the roadmap going on from here, it gives us an idea of where this might end up with the tariffs. The Republicans saw the tariffs as fulfilling their promises in the 1888 election, and McKinley believed it was mandated by the people and necessary for American prosperity. So basically, here's what happened. It basically, the tariffs played a significant role in catalyzing the formation of the Populist Party by severely impacting American farmers in several ways. Directly, farmers faced huge increases in farming supply. The price of tractors went up 6-fold. And this was because there was no foreign competition. So the domestic suppliers started ramping the prices up. And basically, the other side of it, to make it even worse for the farmers, reciprocal tariffs came in, and so the farmers couldn't export their crops. So this is something that's going on right now. We've seen some of this with soybeans as well over the last year or two. So what happened was the farmers started creating alliances, and basically they went on to form in 1891. So that will be the 3 times 45-year cycle from now that formed the People's Populist Party. Okay, and that became a severe threat. And the long and short of all this was this ended up with a crushing Republican defeat in the midterms, by the way, although there's talk about midterms might not need to be done anymore as well. So what we can really see is that if tariffs repeat as they did in history from 3 times 45-year cycles ago, then there might be a bit of an issue that really this does backfire heavily. what went on to happen was the Democrats then gained unified control for the first time since the Civil War. And so that's like, this is the first time since 1864, 1865, right? So this is like 30 years. So, and the Democrats replaced the McKinley tariff, which lowered rates. So you can see that it actually didn't work out too well with the constant use of tariffs. And there are many parallels there right now. So that's that one. Right, you can take your beliefs back in and everything. I've just seen a comment here, actually. Aren't you just cherry picking and making patterns fit? And I could easily find lots of things where I choose a random date. I can find all sorts of events. Well, I'll say that's fine. You do that, because I honestly don't care. This work we've been doing for 30, 40 years, and we know it works, and we've proven its predictive capability. We've got satisfied clients. So you go ahead and do your random stuff. But I honestly, along with everybody at the foundation, we're working very hard on this. Yes, I accept your comment, and good luck. You can use random dates and see if you can get the results we're getting. So that's what we're seeing here. And on that same note, if you're not sure about the 45-year cycle, look at what silver's done in the last 45 years, because we just last year was that replicated the run up into the bunker hunt corner. So I'm fairly satisfied. You don't have to be, and I don't care either. All right, let's look at what's going on now in the market. So I promised we'd give a little bit of a market feed. Bitcoin, right? So Lars, amazing there. What are we seeing here? Well, we've seen this high. It's coming down now. So this is what we've seen. This move up has started. People are getting a little bit more bullish. This is what happened back in 22. We saw this. We moved up and we sold off like that. So what we're seeing is we're seeing a potential move to the downside. And the reason being, it's not being supported by any of the smart money here at all. Let me just take it to another side. This buying here, this move up, this is the non-reportable money. Now, we talk about the different types of people in the commitment of traders data. Basically, the non-reportables are usually at the extreme inverse place. Our dear friend Jake Bernstein is an expert on this. And basically, you can see here at this high there back at the back end, basically, we've got a major high in non-reportable buying at the top. And that's exactly what we saw here. And they're actually buying again. So that suggests that this is probably going to turn down. And if we do look at Elliott waves, I think we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, possibly. Okay. Taking that a stage further. Here we go. This is the non-reporters have been buying this decline as well, trying to catch a falling knife. So this is very important. So this suggests to me Bitcoin is heading down. And when we look at our histograms from the report, we've got a spike coming up this week and clear dates around about the 24th to 27th. So I'm expecting this to turn down. And I did look earlier. We did see a big sell-off. So it's coming a little early. But this, I think, is quite an important place here. Next up, the euro, very topical because, the whole idea of NATO, euro, Russia, America, kind of interesting. So where are we at? Right now, we're at a point of what we call commercial selling. There's a very high level of commercial selling where we often see tops coming in. So you can see this preceded this move down. This top here preceded this move down. Now, they don't come in straight away. They come in, they take a few weeks and even months to play in. But the idea is right now, this data is suggesting to me that the euro is kind of at a point where it's about to roll over, which would be bullish for the dollar index. And also, when we look at the hedge fund positions, the non-commercial positions, basically, you can see that we've got a high here that brought the high in there. This is where the non-commercials, the hedge funds, when they're at an extreme, we'll often see a reversal because there's no more buying to be done. And you can see that's where they're at here. They were a little early there, and they were spot on there. So euro, bigger picture to the short side. Next up, silver. I wanted to just cover silver. This is suggesting that we've got a parabolic move. The smart money has been leaving slowly. So that suggests that this hasn't got much more, but it has got some legs there. and we can see that the trend followers are also leaving as well. So there's a degree of money leaving. That's not to say this couldn't go higher, though, in the shorter term. But just watch out, because when this does turn, I think it'll come down quite sharply, as it did 46 years ago. So watch out for that. Next up, soybean oil is something here. Let's have a look. Got the wrong chart in here. Sorry about that. Oh, this is. Let me go back to silver. Just let me finish this. Seasonally, silver tends to make highs round about the third week of February. So I think this is a clear point to look at. Sorry, we've got the slides jumbled up here. So this is quite an important point here in silver. And in fact, this bit here tends to be a very bullish point here, which I think starts around about the 23rd of January. So normally, according to seasonality, silver will head up from here into around about the 10th of February, and it has done so with an 82% win rate in the last 20 years. So just watch out for that. That does suggest we've got a bit more to go. I would certainly be more cautious about silver as we approach the third week of February. So that was that. One of the slides has moved here. This is one of the last ones I want to look at here. Soybean meal and, soybean oil. I think these slides just got swapped around a little bit. What we're seeing here, we'll come back to that other side, is that the smart money has stopped selling and has started buying. And if we look at this long-term pattern, it is heading up there with higher lows. And I think this could be about to break out for a significant move here. So I think this is pretty important. And also what we're seeing here with, sorry, we've got these charts jumbled up here. Let me go back here. Sorry about this, guys. Soybean oil is that the smart money is also, the trend following money is selling this at a very high level there. So that is where we're at with soybean oil, and I think that's about to move. And very quickly, there is a very important timing point that this is just what's happened in the last couple of days here, suggesting this is a serious move, and it could well carry on up into April. So that is soybean oil. There's soybean oil, maybe silver up into February. Some interesting trades there. Euro to the downside, and Bitcoin to the downside. So I just wanted to give you some ideas of some trades we're looking at, because I know Bill Sarubi and I presume Jake as well will be giving you a forecast for the year ahead. So rather than all three of us giving you different ones, I thought I'd tell you what we're looking at now. And these, I think, are pretty reasonable opportunities for the first part of the year. Right. I just mentioned the year ahead edition. I know we've got 500 or 600 people signed up for this from our list, and most of you have already got this. But the full geopolitical brief covers all these things: the key dates, Australian turning points, the property cycle, US market forecast as well as all these different things here and what's happening to these countries in more depth, China and Taiwan, some key dates. So if you did want that, you can get hold of it. And it's basically there, markettimingreport.com, YA, year ahead, FSC. You can go and grab hold of that. That's it at the moment. So I'm happy to take some questions. Probably got through this quite quickly here. We've got all these social media bits and pieces going on here. Contact us on Instagram and we'll give you some more information. LinkedIn as well, and YouTube. There's a lot more videos there on the longer cycles. So I think really that is everything I've got. So
let's close the slides and let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk. Let's do that. Let me bring this over. Right, yeah.
We're definitely in some serious geopolitical activity at the moment, I would say.
Yes.
And you've been forecasting this geopolitical dynamics for quite some time now. So, I mean, it's really quite incredible what we've seen over the past 6-12 months. Feels like it does feel as though these cycles are coming to a head. You know, the fourth turning idea, the geopolitical stuff. And so do you see this intensifying, slowing down? What are you seeing over the next couple of years?
Right. So as I said, the bigger picture is set against this backdrop of a 100-year cycle from the
Hmm.
29 crash. So let's talk about that one first, which isn't going to answer your question. But what
Yeah.
it is going to say is that actually, if that cycle continues, and that 100-year cycle is a pretty good one in the markets,
Hmm.
I know people are questioning how many random cycles we've got, but these are not random at all. That would suggest the stock market has got some legs, but obviously there'll be corrections before that. Okay.
Hmm.
Most importantly is this 90-year cycle that we've got going on from the outbreak of the Second World War. And I think that's the one that suggests that we are going to have trouble. The 81 to 84-year war cycle does see America in combat at this point between now and 2027. So I think there's
Hmm.
a distinct possibility. I think that I don't think things are going to subdue. Now, those are those are the shorter term cycles, 190 and 81, 84.
Those are the shorter
But
term cycles.
yeah, because we've got to put this in the context of the 250-year empire cycle.
Hmm.
Okay, so um, uh, basically, that is the big one. It's all change. It's all change. As I said, take here the two. This is 250 years on from the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I
Hmm.
think this is at risk because it's the death and rebirth cycle. It's coming in right now. And a 250-year cycle doesn't play out over a week. It's been building up for the last, if we can go back 10 years and we go forward 10 years. So from 2016, the arrival of Donald Trump, the arrival of Nigel Farage, Brexit, all the way through to 2036. It's a 20-year
Hmm.
window, 10 years either side on that.
Hmm.
And there's going to be so much change here. So the real questions are now really, are we going to see a change of dominant empire with China, Russia, so on? Is America going to force itself forward into, Greenland is very topical. Are we seeing this actually? Whoever's got the biggest mic can help themselves to anything now, and the breakdown of every treaty. This is how empires transition, end, and then go into the next phase. Are we? And the 90-year cycle shows exactly what happened. We had an authoritarian dictatorship with, that really escalated. So I'm not saying, this is why I asked everybody to check their political views in and their emotions in, because we've got to look at this from a cycles viewpoint. Now, it doesn't mean history repeats exactly, but it rhymes for sure. And we can see all this, because if we were, say, Richard, you and I were hanging out wherever, well, we were in Nashville, we were in Palm Beach 10 years ago, whenever, right? The world was quite a happy place, really, then, wasn't it? And all that sort of, and you can see there's a lot more tension and, Dan on the cruise in Minneapolis, and he said you can sense it in the air there, and there are things going on. So we've got different things going on, and
And
one
how
of the things
about Japan?
sorry.
How about Japan?
Well, Japan, the cycles for Japan are quite interesting because they also put Japan into a war position as well. And I think Japan is sitting there quietly in a fairly strong position. But Japan was at war with China, actually. Now, off the top of my head, sorry, it's really late here. I'm just trying to
Hmm.
think of the years. But that cycle is relevant now as well. And I haven't put much emphasis on it because I couldn't really see why they would get involved in any direct conflict.
Hmm.
So I think,
I mean, I'm just looking at what's happening with their bond prices going up and
right.
the new Iron Lady.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when we looked at this 36-year cycle where I mentioned the overlap of the the New York mayors, the capture of two uh, leaders of other countries that didn't appeal to America and so on. These things to the day.
That
The
was pretty
36.
interesting
Sorry.
that was amazing that was 36 years to the day, Noriega and Maduro. I did not know that.
Right. But also, the mayor thing. So we're 36 years on from 1990. And the reason I bring this up is because you mentioned Japan, and that was the
Hmm.
top of the Nikkei. So that was quite a significant point there as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff going on.
Yep. And anything on the 18.6 year real estate cycle? I know you did an
Um,
interview with Akil Patel about a month ago.
yeah, Yeah, Akil Patel and Phil Anderson, real experts on this, and
Yep.
basically they would say, I'm going to quote this. I'm going to quote Phil with full credit to him
Hmm.
in some discussions. But yes, this is the time period. Sometime this year, they're looking for a top in the real estate cycle. But Phil then did put that the two times this cycle has failed, these guys are the experts. So I'm quoting them.
Hmm.
I usually do my own study, but I've left this to them. I don't want to, go into their area where they're experts. But the
Hmm.
two times that real estate cycle has failed in the last, I think as much as 200 years,
Hmm.
have been when wars have broken out. Those are the two times that the cycle has failed. So Phil has now very clearly stated a caveat in both in private conversations and in a smaller gathering that I was at with him that that cycle is at risk of failing. Personally, until we see otherwise, I don't know. Right now, if I look at, I mean, the housing market here in Britain, I think is a little bit slow to say the least. I think there are pockets of America, Las Vegas, places like that. Things are very, very quiet, and heading down.
Hmm.
So I think there's definitely some sign there about the property cycle there coming to a head. And for those who are it's common knowledge, and again, we've covered it in the year ahead report, but it goes up for 14 years, comes down for 4, and we are at that 2026 peak. But there would, the markets follow later on and so on. So
Hmm.
that was what I've heard from them, and I'm relaying their words with full credit to them.
So just broad thoughts on the US stock market for the year? Bullish,
US stock
bearish?
market. Um, I the odds favor the year. Yeah, okay. So I'm just laughing because we wouldn't do that. But the odds favor it to close up this year. But I think it's not as strong. Well, it's not as strong as a year ending in 5. And I think if there's some geopolitical intervention, and so, I mean, we could see some fireworks in between. But
Yeah.
if we're in a normal market, now if we go into a war scenario, markets crash to start with and then regroup pretty quickly because wars are very bullish, right?
Hmm.
And basically, um, uh, so at the moment, whilst I am personally short this last few days, I do think we could see a rally towards the back end of the year. But that's the latter half of the year in the modelling does look more bullish. Yeah. In fact, what I would like to on that note, this what's happened this the you mentioned to Lars, and we just spoke when we were sound checking a bit earlier about the space weather over the last 24 hours has
Yes.
a K index of 8, which is unheard of. 8 is one less than 9, which is as high as it goes.
Mm.
So yesterday, and we got another spike this morning. We were at a point
Mm.
where um, basically we saw a lot of the aurora borealis was seen very far down, but that I was just checking this out before we went live. 24 minor earthquakes in California in the last 24 hours. So, um,
Mm.
and then what else have we had? It's gold, massive day up, stock market down, and I wasn't going to mention names or anything, but that in terms of suddenly this whole idea of it does seem to be a true statement. I would like to fact check things that it was stated that due to not being awarded a certain prize, there would be repercussions. That does seem to be a genuine statement. So we're seeing slightly what we
Crazy.
get. Yeah, yeah. So what
Seeing
we see
crazy.
with intense space weather is this,
Mm.
the ionization of the solar wind and the atmosphere
Mm.
changes,
Mm.
and that is what does create, mass events. That's why,
Mm.
mass selling, mass buying of gold, mass selling of the S&P,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
also crazy behavior and so on.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
look, this is why I said please check your beliefs. And I know a lot of people. There's a lot of people support the left, a lot of people support the right, and all the way
Yeah.
across. I'm not here to insult anybody. I'm just here to observe cycles. But this is kind of like it's one thing you can see strategically that certain people are getting things done. That things are getting done, but then
Mhm.
also some things are going a little bit too far, and so
Mhm.
on. So it's one thing you can see, for example, the case for Greenland. And in fact, this was something I read about 2 years ago in the Year Ahead report, was that the Arctic would be the next key area.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, think about this. What's the next one after this is the Antarctic. Okay. Well, that's a lot more ice there, right? But these are key strategic points because of the way you can traverse the globe.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we seeing here is, who knows, but it's building very quickly. Let me also tell you this: on the 7th of March, 90 years ago, a certain Fourth Reich leader marched into territory that they were banned from. So I'd mark the 7th of March in. They went into the Rhineland, which they had to, which they were constricted from being in. So I don't know, 7th of March. Let's see what happens. Is that when maybe people move into Greenland? I don't know. It's a very precarious situation we're in right now. It's almost like deals have been done. Is that, well, we're going to have Greenland, you can have Taiwan, and you can have Ukraine, and nobody cares. But it's kind of like a unilateral decision made by one person and then handed out to the others. And this is what we're seeing at the end of a 250-year cycle. And I think this is very critical.
Have you seen the Seinfeld episode where they kick over the board of risk for Ukraine?
No, I haven't seen that. No, we
Oh,
don't get Seinfeld over here, but as you know,
it's very pertinent to today.
okay,
There's
yeah.
the two characters are playing a game of risk, but they don't trust each other.
Oh,
And so
okay.
they don't want to leave the board, so they take it with them everywhere they go, and eventually the board gets kicked over. And
Oh
it
my
feels a little
God.
bit like that's
That's
kind of
exactly it.
the time that we're in. It's quite prophetic.
Yeah, yeah.
So any
So
advice for what, us little people should be doing during these crazy
we're, we're,
times?
we're all little people here, aren't we? That's it. That's the thing is,
We're the little folks.
I lock myself away in the room, and I just study cycles. That keeps me happy till it all gets blown up. I guess
Well,
that I'll die happy being boring reading cycles. Though seriously, did we have any other questions that came through as well?
let's
So
see.
sorry if I was a bit brusque with
There
whoever it
is
was
some
that was
questions about the
challenging.
yen carry trade, if you think that's
I
in
don't want to go into
danger.
that one because I don't feel right now I have. Was that? Did I see that from our Bill? Bill, yeah, our Bill Arndt. Yeah, we can cover that in the Masters Working Group at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Iran,
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for all your good work, Bill. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Who else?
Iran.
Iran. Iran. Okay. All right. So you're asking. I'm going to give you a little bit. This is actually covered in the report, which is why I didn't cover it here. But there are several things going on, right? So what is happening this week is critical. And last week's critical, and next week is going to be super critical because 45 years ago, 45, yeah, 45, yeah, 45 years ago, 45 years ago, this, at the end of this month, was when Reagan was inaugurated after winning the election and took over from Jimmy Carter. Okay. So what was going on? 1979, April 1979, the Ayatollah came out of exile. He came back from Paris. He landed, and the theocracy took place. Was formed, and basically American and British interests were very heavily involved there, embedded with the Shah of Iran. Supposedly, a friend, and his grandson is very prevalent now. And of course, it's all about the exploitation of minerals. Nobody really wants friendships. The Brits, the Americans, all the nations want the oil. So that's what it's about. You can see where this comes from. And that's what it's always been about. It's imperialism. It's modern imperialism. So what happened then was the hostages were taken at the Iranian embassy. They were held captive. Under Jimmy Carter's tenure, they were not going to let them out. That came to a head exactly 45 years ago. I think it was the 30th of January. It was the last week of January. So watch Iran. And I think that could be the distraction away from Greenland in the short term. I think there's that. What I will say is that if you go back 90 years to in the history of Iran, Persia, right? 90 years ago, there was a revolt, and it was against the traditional ways and values. That revolt was one where they wanted women not to wear hijabs and purdah and so on, and they wanted men to dress in a more Western way. And that was all because it all tied up with what was going on with the intervention with Britain and America, who constantly interfering in Iran to control the oil. So that is the overview of Iran. There's a bit more in the report as well. Yeah.
Cycles matter because they show us the future. Nothing else shows us a future path. Nothing that I've ever found in over 60 years of doing this.
The foundation is bigger than markets, right? It started out bigger than markets. It's still bigger than markets. It's bigger than us.
There is no such thing as a black swan. It is merely a cycle that was not forecast or anticipated.
To me, it's huge. If I can get a glimpse of the future, just a little bit of the future, I'm way ahead.
I think that the Foundation for the Study of Cycles has a role to play in both bringing technology to the world, but also really emphasizing agency and human agency.